Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today we're going to be talking about, are movies really getting worse? The short answer is no. And the longer answer is, no, really, they're not, and here's why. Everybody likes to complain that all we're getting now are these stupid superhero movies with terrible CGI, cheesy acting and line delivery, and just the same stupid thing over and over and over again. And that is true that is the popular thing right now. We're getting an overabundance of one genre that is very repetitive, very cookie cutter, and doing the same thing every time. But every decade has had that. There's always been a genre that was popular and played to death. Like there was spaghetti westerns that were extremely popular in the 50s. Westerns in general were really popular in the 40s. And sci-fi blew up in the 60s and into the 70s. And then now horror is actually more popular than anything. We're getting more horror movies than we've ever had before. So yeah, we're getting a lot of the same superhero movies and big action blockbusters right now. And it's repetitive and boring. And yes, we are getting more bad movies now than ever. But honestly, it's because we're getting more movies, period, right now than ever. To be honest, that's not completely true. It's not literal. We're not literally getting more movies this year than ever before because we're still recovering from the backlash of 2020. 2020, we only put out like 350 movies, whereas the year before we put out like 800. And so we're still coming back from that, but that's why. If you go back to 2019, 2018, 2017, we're setting a new record almost every year for the amount of movies we were putting out because movies are becoming more and more plentiful, and the reason is because they're becoming more and more accessible, because they're becoming cheaper. Movies are just becoming cheaper and easier to make. Right now, I've got professional grade editing software on my computer. I can do that. People in the 90s couldn't. I've also got a camera that can film in 4K if I wanted to. I don't because I don't need it for my YouTube channel, but I have 4K ability. That wasn't possible back in the 90s. You had to rent a full film camera. That was thousands upon thousands of dollars. And now CGI and special effects are becoming way cheaper, so movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once can be made for only $25 million. And now I know that sounds like a lot of money, and to an average person it is, but to a film studio, it's practically nothing. The average movie gets made for $100 million. This was made for only 25, a quarter of that. Now, yes, there have been a lot of independent movies made for that much, and even cheaper in the past, but normally, they're dramas. Normally, they're movies that just have one or two main characters, it revolves mainly around dialogue, and it's just pretty low-key. You can usually tell when it's a low-budget movie. Everything Everywhere All at Once was nothing like that. If you've seen it, you know it had some of the best special effects I've ever seen. It was crazy. There was always something going on. And it only cost $25 million. That's never been done before. Now you may say, hold on, wait a second. A New Hope was made for only $11 million. That had groundbreaking special effects and was a special effects driven movie. How can you say that it's never been done before? Well, because $11 million in 1977 is worth upwards of $50 million today. So it's twice the budget actually of this. Going back to just 2003, there was a movie made for $33 million worth about $53 today. That was Elf. What special effects in that movie can compare to Everything Everywhere All at Once? I can think of one scene, really, where they've got Santa's sleigh that has to fly away. Everything else was done with practical effects, and they had no real major names in it. Will Ferrell wasn't huge yet. He was a major risk coming off of SNL. Zooey Deschanel wasn't that big yet. It was a relatively cheap movie. That's what these low-budget movies usually are, is a couple of risks at the main characters, and then not a whole lot of special effects. Nothing like Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is groundbreaking. And again, that $33 million is upwards of 50, so double again what Everything Everywhere All at Once cost. That's crazy. Elf costing twice as much as Everything Everywhere All at Once doesn't make sense if you're looking at it straight on, but you have to know where film is going and how it's becoming so much more accessible and easy to make. This is a great thing. And yes, I know a lot of people like to point to Blair Witch Project for only costing $60,000. That's dirt cheap, but also once again, that was 1999. That's over $100,000 today. And if you've seen that movie, you know It's extremely cheap looking. Somebody could make that exact same movie now for a few $100s, because all you need is this camera and a microphone and you're good to go. That's all that went into it. So yeah, that was dirt cheap, but it would be a lot cheaper now. And right now you might be thinking, okay, well, you've said all this about how movies are more accessible and that explains why there's more bad movies, but are there really good movies coming out now? Yes, there are. And if you don't see that, you're either just being willfully ignorant or you're not paying attention. Like, there's the mainstream movies, but the mainstream movies have never been the really good movies, except for the occasional exception like Hitchcock and right now Nolan. It's extremely rare that the movie that makes the most money is actually the best movie to come out that year. I mean, how many people actually think that Avatar is the best movie to have come out that year? Not really anybody, and if you do, you're just wrong. You're objectively wrong. And yeah, Nolan movies make a decent amount of money, and same thing with Hitchcock's movies, but they were never the big money-making thing. I mean, like I've talked about Orson Welles before, he never made like any money from any of his movies. That's how it usually goes. The art gets appreciated after the fact, and it gets appreciated by a minority. The movies that make all the money are the movies that can be enjoyed by the lowest common denominator, aka the stupid people. The people that don't appreciate the good movies. The good movies are only appreciated by the people that can appreciate them, obviously. So they're going to have a smaller audience than the movies that anybody can watch without thinking about it. But that doesn't mean that good movies aren't coming out. If you go to IMDb and look at their top 100 movies of all time list, 36 of them have come out since the year 2000. And 14 of those have come out in the past decade alone. Movies like Inception, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Parasite, Whiplash, Interstellar, Django Unchained, The Dark Knight, Inglourious Basterds, The Prestige, The Departed, The Lord of the Rings trilogy, Spirited Away, Memento, Requiem for a Dream. There have been a ridiculous amount of great movies coming out. People are just bitter because the popular movies aren't the good ones. And that's how it's always been. That's just not gonna change. I'm sorry. And yeah, it may be true that we're not in the literal best movie era of all time. That's usually equated to the 30s, the 40s, or the 90s. The 90s was one of the best decades of movies of all time. But you know what else was? The 2010s. I'd put them in the top 4. In fact, if you look at just the year 2014 alone, you have a good argument for why that's the best year in film history. I know a lot of people want to point to 1939, 1940, 1951. There's a lot of really good years out there. 1975, 1999. There's a lot of really good years. 1994, 1993, even 95. But if you isolate just 2014, because we're talking about recent years here, and I know 2014 was 8 years ago already, which is crazy. You have so many great movies. Let's just look at them. In 2014, all of these movies came out. Interstellar, Whiplash, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Gone Girl, Nightcrawler, Birdman, The Theory of Everything, Selma, American Sniper, Chef, Snowpiercer, The Babadook, Inherent Vice, The Drop, Foxcatcher, The Equalizer, John Wick, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, The Lego Movie, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Boyhood, X-Men, Days of Future Past, and Guardians of the Galaxy. But no, we don't make good movies anymore. That was all 1 year. 1 year. Good movies are being made every year. If you don't know about them, go find them, okay? I know, they're not always as accessible as every MCU movie. Not all of those are terrible either, by the way. But they are out there. You get movies every year. Even 2020 had a couple of good movies, and we saved all the good movies for a different year. Every year there are great movies coming out. They're just not always going to be the most popular ones. But I mean, just in the past couple of years, we had The Father, which is one of the literal best movies I've ever seen in my life. This year we had Everything Everywhere All at Once, which became an automatic top 20 favorite movie of all time for me. We had Jojo Rabbit a couple of years ago, which was amazing. We had Come On, Come On last year. Every year, there were great movies. They might just be a little bit harder to find sometimes, but go find them. They're out there. Movies aren't getting worse. They're not. They're not. There's great movies all the time, everywhere. Everywhere, all at once. Everywhere. Go find them. Go watch them. You might have to go to a smaller theater. You might have to look around, but just go on IMDb and look up the highest rated movies and then watch them. Go to the top 100 list. Find all the recent ones and watch them. Or, you know what? Every year I make a top 10 list. Watch those. They're good. Usually. The 2020 list was, I don't know. I'm done. I hear so many people complain about, like, oh, there's no good movies anymore. Movies suck now. No, they don't. They really don't. They don't. Debate over. Movies are great. They're always going to be great. They always have been great. Well, for the past 100 years, they haven't really existed that long. Alright, I'm done. I'm rambling. I'm ranting. Movies are good. Go watch them.